Anyone who is making decisions for themselves that the parents don't give their blessing, that's seen as rebellious. The way that my parents kind of protected my brother, but then used me and some of my sisters, it was hard, and it's still hard to swallow.
Hi, besties. It's Katie Joy. Listen, I just want to be honest here. 2 years ago, I spoke up about the production involved with the series Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets. I spoke up about their manipulation of the people on the series, their use of certain content creators, their platforming of certain people, them using me for months for information, for sources, and for leads, and also for platforming people that were very, very, very dangerous and didn't listen and didn't care. And ahead of the series, when it came out back in June of 2023, months before it was released, months before, a protective order was taken out against one of those people by a son and a wife, alleging all kinds of physical and psychological harm. But I didn't just share that with them. I shared details about what was happening behind the scenes in that same family. I provided accounts directly from family members to the production about who these people were and how giving them a voice would be harmful to their series and cause the series to lack credibility. And then once the series came out and I went public and I shared what occurred, and I told them, and I told the audience about how I told the director, Olivia Christ, about Jim Holt, the allegations that his kids had brought against him, the protective orders against him, and the allegation that one of his daughters was married to someone just like Josh Duggar, a confession that daughter made to me. And on the same episodes of Shiny Happy People, they allowed Jim and Bobby Holt to cry on camera and say that they saved that daughter from Josh when they just walked her into the hands of someone just like Josh. And I told them they were being lied to, misled, and deceived. And when I also went public with information that those people, Jim Holt and Bobby, told production and others on production that I was a liar, that I could not be trusted, that I was manipulative, that I was jealous, and they got Amy Duggar King to literally block me and not speak to me for months. They went public and lied and said that the reason why they chose not to work with me was because, they needed to balance the needs of the people that were appearing in the series. They needed to balance their desire to be on camera if I was going to be involved, which is very weird, right? It's weird because at the time, before Jim Holt started smearing me, I was the one that told Derek Dillard about the series. In fact, I got him to consider even talking to production. I gave them his phone number or his email address, and I gave them Olivia Plath's phone number. They didn't use her or even talk to her. I handed over so much information and so much content to them to make the series. And then only a couple months later, after Jim Holt started smearing me, did they say that they had so many people that they were working with that they just couldn't have any more commentators. It was nothing personal. But then when the series was launched, they said there was people on the cast that didn't want to be on camera with me, which was a lie. The only people that didn't want me on camera were Jim Holt and Bobby Holt because I knew the truth, and they turned everyone against me. It's interesting because this time around, Olivia Christ is not the director. Instead, the director is Corey Shepard. And Corey is one of the producers that did an AMA in the Duggars Snark board. And she answered questions about me and she disparaged me. And I was told by multiple people that people were being told not to talk to me. It wasn't until after the series came out and until a protective order was taken out against Jim Holt and until he lost custody of his children that my relationship with Amy was restored. It took that long because they were so gaslit by Jim that I was a liar. My first text message to them about Jim was in February of 2022 before they had even started filming. And I told them what the allegations were. I provided screenshots of what his daughter had told me about physical abuse, about what she had told me about her husband, about how he was just a curious teenage boy, just like Josh, and that it was her dad actually that was going to fix him. It wasn't until there was a court proceeding and documents filed where one of his daughters, his youngest daughter, but his, I think, third youngest child, accused him of sexual misconduct. And she was, for all intents and purposes, emancipated because she went to go live with her brother until she turned 18 and she would never have to live in his home again. And I spoke up about him then because I was concerned about what it would appear like for the victims of the cult to be given this platform, but then equally to have someone on the other side of this telling part of the story and acting like they weren't part of it and that they saved their daughter and that they were against what was happening, but they were actually just as bad as the Duggars, if not worse. I was trying to think about the victims and what it would do to them as they share their stories very bravely in the series. And unfortunately, what happened to me was those same survivors that showed and shared their stories started attacking me on social media, calling me a liar, not believing anything I said. So I have a hard time thinking that it's not going to happen this time around with the Shiny Happy People season 2. And I can already tell that there's a manipulation in the way that this is being marketed. And listen, I have nothing against Amy Duggar King. I adore her. And her husband Dylan watches my stories, he follows me. Nothing against them. I actually texted with her not long ago. She also has a book coming out. I think she does a good job in what she does. But at the same time, I feel like she's being exploited because she's a Duggar and they need her to carry into this next season to get people to watch because it's not going to be about the Duggars. The reason why Shiny Happy People's ratings were so high in the most highly rated docuseries ever on Amazon was because it was about the Duggars. It was about a case that had just taken over social media. The Duggars had spent, I don't know, what, 17 years on TV. They had promoted family values. Their son had been just convicted of CSAM. He was put into prison. Their show was canceled, and it was their downfall. They only got one child from the family, Jill, and her husband to speak. And then, later on, her sister, Ginger, went public and criticized them for how they portrayed Christians. And she didn't think it was very godly the way that the series was done, which is, I understand. I thought the last episode really derailed the entire series because it went off into a tangent that made it too political and it missed the entire point in my opinion. But that's what their goal was. Like their agenda with the series wasn't to do a balanced portrayal of the IBLP. They wanted to like create a whole series to kind of scare you into believing that Christian nationalists were going to take over our government, which I understand. Like, it's fine, but there's concern there, I guess. But I think it's an injustice, really, to the survivors of the cult when you throw in your political angle at the end, and then it kind of just discounts their involvement. And truthfully, the Joshua generation wasn't affiliated with the IBLP. And then the survivor stories were just at the end, kind of like, oh, yeah, and here, this is how life goes on, and this is what is happening next. And it just left things hanging. And then to keep us hanging on, they promised that the Duggars, that, they had enough content to do a season 2, and they might consider doing a season 2. And so now with the season 2 coming out, the first person that's in the trailer is Amy. And so you think it's about the Duggars again, but it's not. It's about teenage mania or something, some teen mania, which was a cult for teens with loud rock band music. And then they're using and exploiting Amy and her husband to talk about it so that you guys will tune in thinking it's about the Duggars. And I just, if my experience with the first season is indicative of what they're going to do with the second, I just don't think it's with the right intentions. I think it's more just for like shock value and um, to expose a cult that I don't even know if Teen Mania is around anymore. I don't know what kind of impact it will have, but I'm concerned about how the survivors of that group are going to be treated, because I've heard that some of the people that were involved in the first series didn't feel that great after the series came out. I mean, they brought in Paul and Morgan, who are YouTubers, which I understand a lot of people don't like them, but they brought them in under false pretenses and manipulated them and lied to them about what they were going to be doing and showing on the show or as a part of the series. And then they interviewed them for like 5 or 6 hours, cut them down to, a couple sound bites, and then use them in a way to kind of humiliate them for having beliefs that they didn't agree with. And you don't have to like Morgan and Paul, but it's deceptive to be brought into a series and then to be lied to. It's a lot like how they had me sign an exclusive that I was going to appear on camera. They told me I was going to be a vital part of the series. I got them all kinds of source information, gave them all kinds of documents, put together spreadsheets for them on LLCs of the Duggars and all kinds of financial stuff that was happening, only to be then told she's unstable, she's jealous, that's what they told everyone. So I won't be watching Shiny Happy People season 2 because of who is making the series, not because of what the content is about, but who's behind it. I worked on a documentary after my involvement with Duggar family, the Shiny Happy People crew. And the second crew that I worked with, hands down, were in it for the right reasons. Absolutely every single victim and survivor of the group that we were talking about was treated with care and concern and offered so many resources if they needed it. And their stories were treated very respectfully, and they weren't put on camera with people that had caused them harm. I also wasn't used. I got a credit in that. They used my reporting. I was paid. I wasn't told you're going to be vital only to be dumped and then slandered. So my warning is to anyone that gets involved with any of these production companies that work on Shiny Happy People or any of the future seasons to be careful, because I think they exploit cult members. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.